everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to hear God Bless America for the final song, and then we will start the program after that. So, kind of gives you an idea to take a seat.
I try to hide behind the ball. Now I take coffee when I came here. Yeah, well.
All because of your daughter. I was looking for a relative home. Next thing I know, I got a phone call. We need to talk, and then you need to be at the cemetery in such and such time.
First thing, I want to do a microphone check. Can everybody hear me? Way in the back? Great. First of all, I'd like to say if there's any veteran that needs a seat, we have some seats up here behind the first row of our program folks. So if anybody needs a seat, we have those white chairs. It's an honor for me to be standing here before you today to participate in today's Memorial Day service and the Veterans Honor Roll dedication. On behalf of the Veterans Honor Roll Committee, the Mount Allen Post 81, and the Jackson Silver Post number 68, members, all the participants here for this joint ceremony, we thank you. Thank you to all who have come to attend this solemn but special day, both near and far. Memorial Day is not about picnics, cookouts, or getting away. Memorial Day is a day that was set aside to remember and honor the men and women who died while serving in the United States Armed Forces. Formerly known as Decoration Day, it originated after the American Civil War to commemorate the fallen soldiers of the Civil War. By the turn of the 20th century, Memorial Day had been extended to honor all Americans who have died in all wars. Now I would like to ask you to remove your hats and stand for the playing of the national anthem under the Mahoosic Community Band under the direction of Patricia Boyle White. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to ask Dan Grover, chaplain for Jackson Silver Post 68, to please give today's invocation.
Uncover. Let us pray. Almighty God, giver of all victories, we thank thee for the opportunities which abide in our land, for thy guidance in this hour of peril, and thy tender love in times of need. Help us to remember with reverence the valor and devotion of our departed comrades, not only those whose bodies consecrate our country's soil, but also those who sleep beyond the seas, and those others whose resting places will not be known until the last day, when the deep will have given up its dead. O God, teach us to honor them by ever cherishing the ideals for which they fought. Keep us steadfast in the cause of human rights and liberties, of law and order, and true Americanism. Give us the power to see and the will to do right. Grant that the American Legion may preserve the high ideals for which our comrades died. May thy merciful blessing rest upon those they left behind. Keep us forever firm in righteousness, humble of heart, and unselfish in purpose. Amen.
Now I'd like to ask the commander of the Mount Allen Post 81, Scott Cole, to please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Scott Cole, and I am the commander of American Legion Post 81 here in Bethel. Welcome. Today, we once again pay solemn respect to those Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of amazing principles of governance. Those Americans, their collective sacrifice, it was made for a set of principles enshrined in the Constitution. Their sacrifice has allowed millions of people for many years to live without authoritarian oppression, both in this country and abroad. Those Americans and their individual sacrifices they made across 2.5 centuries and on every continent, they have not occurred in vain. Our gathering here today and similar gatherings like this happening all across these United States, they form a collective statement that those American sacrifices were not made in vain. Today's event also affords us the opportunity to recognize military veterans from our very own corner of the world, Western Maine, those who have served the American flag with distinction. Through their military service, these veterans have made their contribution to the continuance of democratic government. Some lived long lives, some did not, and some made that ultimate sacrifice mentioned just a few moments ago. Their names are inscribed on these walls in their honor. We recognize them and we thank them. Our next speaker is Mr. Harry Urquhart. He's the commander. He's my counterpart, Post 68, Lock Mills. Harry is a proverbial student of history. He will now offer a brief oration on Western Maine's role during the time of the American Revolution. Thank you.
Good morning. Before I begin, I have the high honor of acknowledging the presence with us today of the incoming commander of the American Legion Department of Maine, Kirk Thurston. Kirk has held numerous offices within the Maine American Legion, including those as commander of Napoleon Post 24 Rumford and past District 5 Commander of Oxford County. As we gather here today in Bethel, described locally as Maine's most beautiful mountain village, to dedicate this memorial to those who have served in the armed forces of the United States, it should be noted that that service of protecting the nation extends back through every conflict, beginning with the Revolutionary War. First, envisioned as a land-grant settlement in reward for service of soldiers principally from Duxbury, Massachusetts, in the expedition against Canada in 1690, the grant was initially called Duxbury, Canada. However, no action was taken by those soldiers to claim their reward for about 80 years. It was their descendants who pursued the claim. It is recorded that on June 7, 1768, in Generalport, Massachusetts, a grant was issued to Josiah Richardson and others whose ancestors were in the expedition against Canada in 1690, a township of 6 3/4 square miles to be laid out in the unappropriated lands of this province to the eastward of the Saco River. That same year, proprietors chose Joseph Twitchell, a man of considerable wealth who resided in Sherborne, Massachusetts, the town next to Duxbury, and Isaac Fuller to survey and lay out lots within the bounds of the grant. Twitchell is said to have never resided in the village, but he was certainly here long enough to recognize the natural wealth of the grant, as he subsequently purchased 40 or more of the parcels from those who did not wish to develop the land themselves. 10 years later, in 1779, with the Revolutionary War in its 4th year, Joseph prevailed upon his son, Captain Eleazar Twitchell, to move from his then residence in New Hampshire to Sudbury, Canada. The following year, Eleazar brought his wife's sister, Betsy Mason, 5 children, and 6 hired men to work in a mill. Given that the place was a potentially hostile frontier, he likely chose 3 of the 6 men, John Grover, Jeremiah Andrews, and Gideon Powers, because they had served in line regiments in the war. As far as can be determined, the other 3, Gideon's sons Paul and Silas, and a Mr. Fish, had not served. Prior to the captain's arrival, other families had begun to occupy their parcels, clearing and building upon their properties. With Eleazar's arrival, there were 10 families, including his, about evenly divided between the northern and southern parts of the village by 1781. In that year, on August 3rd, there occurred in the village what proved to be the last skirmish of the Northern Department of the Revolutionary War. The encapsulated version is that an indigenous American named Tom Hagen, although in some accounts rendered Tum-Tum Hagen or Tumpkin Hagen, residing in Canada, led 5 other members of his tribe in a sharp attack against small settlements in both Maine and New Hampshire. The attackers were said to be well armed with muskets, tomahawks, and scalping knives. Though America was at war with Britain and the attacked towns were on the then existing frontier, American settlers went about their daily tasks here disarmed. As the attackers came down on Bethel from Lake Ombagog, they encountered a man unidentified in the records, whom they killed and scalped, believing him to be a deserter from Canada. They next came upon the homestead of Captain Benjamin Barker at a place on Sunday River, now located in Newry, where they plundered the cabin and its occupants, Miss Mary Russell and Miss Betsy Mason, who had the misfortune of being visitors on that unhappy day. Next, they arrived at Bethel at the house of Lieutenant Jonathan Clark, who was being helped in his labors by Captain Eleazar Twitchell and Lieutenant Jonathan Sager. They took these men prisoner along with Mr. Benjamin Clark, whom they captured nearby in the woods. Captain Twitchell saw his chance and escaped to the woods, as did Mrs. Clark. The two only discovering each other the next morning, though they lay hidden only yards apart through the night. Mrs. Clark's husband, his brother Benjamin, and Seeger, in the meantime, had been loaded down with all the ransacked goods thus far accumulated, and were forced to proceed, their hands bound, to Gilead, where the house of James Pettingill was next to be despoiled. Though the raiders spared his wife and children, they lured him from his domicile, then killed and scalped him. Crossing the border into New Hampshire at Shelburne, Tom Hagen shot and scalped a Mr. Peter Poor, who after his midday meal was returning to work in his fields, accompanied by his servant, a man of African descent named Plato. Having thus acquired Plato, another strong back, the raiders decided to release one of their prisoners, Lieutenant Clark, who was told to strictly hold to the trail and that he would be safe. As soon as he was out of sight of the group, however, Clark took to the woods, thereby saving his life, as 2 Indians in the party were trailing the group about a mile behind with the intention of adding Clark's scalp to their tally. Though the raiding party was pursued by militia from Freiburg, the chase was finally called off as the raiding party had too great a lead. Thus, Benjamin Clark, Nathaniel Seeger, and Plato were taken to the Indian village in Canada. The village was most likely at the St. Francis Mission, where fragments of many displaced tribal groups congregated together. For their incursion, the 6 Indians were paid $8 for each of the scalps, and the same for the 3 prisoners. Benjamin Clark must have been a person who possessed unusual people skills, as upon arriving at the Indian village,
the tribe dressed him out in their own raiment and desired not only to induct him into their tribe, but to make him their chief as well. The British, however, insisted that he be turned over to them. 16 months after entering into their captivity and not being treated too gently by their British cousins, with the Treaty of Paris having been ratified by both governments, the prisoners were at last released. Being taken by ship to Boston, they recuperated from their ordeal in Newton for some months, and then returned to Sunbury, Canada, where each married and fathered numerous children who in turn had descendants. Sudbury, Canada, Bethel, was but one of a string of settlements founded before the Revolution along the western border of the province of Maine, running in a line from Freiburg to Waterford to Bethel to Rumford. The vast interior of Maine, slightly smaller than the total area of the rest of New England, was left largely unsettled for decades after the United States had been created, after separating from Great Britain. In each borough, village, township, plantation, or city founded in Maine following the Revolution, the first settlers invariably were former Revolutionary War soldiers of Massachusetts and its Maine province, who were accorded land grants in recompense for their having served. Bethel, being so near the border of New Hampshire, also attracted from there settlers who had served in the Revolution once the area had become safe for families. That is why the names of the Revolutionary War soldiers on this great Veterans Monument are a mix of those who were here both before and after the events of 1781. In the greater scheme of that war, the skirmish in this village and environs hardly caused any notice at all. It is, though, an incident well recorded here, as it brought to the residents of this place at that time the terror of brutal war. These encounters were hardly a fair fight. The raiders alone possessed all the weapons and chose targets where they had the numerical advantage over their unarmed victims. Of what relevance is this history today? The likelihood is that an individual who was born here in Maine and can trace family roots back 4 or 5 generations likely has a Revolutionary War ancestor. In Jackson Silver Post in Lock Mills, which I had the honor to presently command, of the 68 current members who have served in the armed forces of the United States, nearly all have thus far been descended from Revolutionary War patriots. 3, in fact, are descended from generals who gave notable service in the discharge of their duties. Elsewhere throughout that community are other individuals who may or may not know they are so descended. In a number of cases, the descent of those who are unaware of their connection is easily proved. They having the same surname as the patriot soldier who settled in the town, and the property on which they currently reside being part of the parcel on which that ancestor first settled. The connections to the past run deep here. In the days leading up to Memorial Day, we in the American Legion visit local cemeteries to decorate with the national colors the graves of veterans who have served both in times of relative peace and in times of horrible conflict. Some of the latter made the ultimate sacrifice. The veteran usually rests among family within a family plot. Beside the veteran, conflict by conflict, going back in time, are often ancestors who also served. We honor them, too, in like manner. They stood from the beginning to defend the freedoms enjoyed by their own families and by others in the community and nation, freedoms that no other people on this planet enjoy. Each of these veterans took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, to preserve the rights, liberties, and tripartite government therein enshrined. We attribute great wisdom to our founding fathers in the decision to separate from the crown and in the establishment of this republic. They were indeed wise, but in fact, their decision derived from exhaustive debates by many, including those who settled in places like Sudbury, Canada. To truly honor those whose names are on this monument, each generation must steep itself in the knowledge of why they served and why they were prepared to make that ultimate sacrifice. We best honor them by remembering their history, our history, and building on the foundation they have laid.
Thank you, Harry. And now the Mahoosic Community Band will play a medley of tunes from each military branch. If you recognize your song, please stand. If you cannot stand, please doff your hat. Thank you. A soldier's prayer. Dear Lord, keep me by the arm you bear and direct a path through harm's way. Help me know that you're always there, guiding me by night and by day. And Lord, at moments when I'm feeling lonely and tempted with discouragement at my post, help me lean mightily on you only, because it is you I depend on the most. When I long to see my family or start thinking of times with a friend, I'll know that you're always with them, even after absence is at an end. Shield me as I answer duty's call, for I have a job from which I can't depart. Protect me from my enemy, who would have me fall, for it is you who guards my life and my heart. Amen. Would Eliza Barnes, the Poppy Chairman for Mont Allen Unit 81 Auxiliary, and Hazel Cole, the President of the Jackson Silver Post 68 Auxiliary, please come forward with their Poppy girls?
Put your two girls right up front.
I'm pleased to announce Lily and Madeline Lewis, the Lock Mills Unit 68 Poppy Girls for 2022. Lily is a 4th grader at Woodstock Elementary School, and Madeline is a 2nd grader at Crescent Park Elementary School. They are the daughters of John and Tanya Lewis of East Bethel. Lily and Madeline come from a long line of veterans. Their father, John Lewis, was in the Marine Corps and served a tour in Afghanistan, earning the rank of sergeant by the end of his service. Their grandfather, Paul Hebert, served in the United States Army. Their great-grandfather on their father's side, John Jack Bates, served in the Army and was awarded a Purple Heart in World War II. One great-grandfather on their mother's side, Fern Miller, served in the Army during World War II. Their other great-grandfather on their mother's side, Herbert Dunham, served in the Army and was awarded a Purple Heart in the Korean War. Lily and Madeline have multiple great-uncles who have served in the armed forces as well. Joseph Hebert, Albert Lake, Charles Howe, and Dana Carstensen, all of whom fought in the Vietnam War.
I am introducing Jocelyn Crockett, the daughter of Jared Paige Crockett from Newry, or they're actually from Bethel, but she's done a wonderful job as Miss Poppy, distributing poppies the funds which go to supporting our veterans and their families. And we're very proud of her work. She comes from a long line of military people. Her father, her grandfather, her great-grandfather, 4 uncles, 4 great-uncles, and an aunt. She has really done her part to support them and our fund for the veterans. And I thank you very much. And Miss Poppy is going to recite for you In Flanders Field. So Jocelyn, would you like to come up and do that?
In Flanders Fields by John McCraw. In Flanders Fields, where poppies grow, between the crosses, row on row, which mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
Hold on. Girls.
Whoops. Oh.
I'd also like to add that Jocelyn is homeschooled. Now, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is the Honorable Jared Crockett, Esquire. Judge Crockett was born and raised in a logging family in Bethel, where he attended local schools. He enlisted as a private in the United States Army at 17 years of age and served as a forward observer, 13F, prior to commissioning as an infantry officer on active duty. During the course of his career, he had 3 overseas assignments and served in leadership positions, including rifle platoon leader, company commander, combat advisor for Afghan National Army, battalion executive officer, battalion commander, and finally on staff of the U.S. Forces Korea, Yongsan, Korea. He has served on active duty, the National Guard for a brief period, and the reserves, from which he ultimately retired as a major. His awards include a Combat Infantry Badge, Expert Infantryman Badge, Parachutist Badge, Airborne Wings, Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, as well as several achievement medals, campaign medals, and various ribbons. During his time in the Army Reserve, Judge Crockett became an attorney, serving 6 years as a state representative in the Maine State Legislature, and has served 6 years as the judge of the Oxford County Probate Court. He still practices law and manages his various business endeavors. Still active in community affairs, he has served on several commissions and boards, both at the local, state, and national level. Jared and his wife Paige and their 3 children, Teddy, Jocelyn, and Foster, live in East Bethel. Jared Crockett.
Well, I'm afraid of this day of traditions. Another one's probably likely to start that I'm going to upstage by my daughter the rest of my life. It is an immeasurable honor for me to partake in the dedication of this monument on this solemn day. First, it is only fitting and proper to extend a heartfelt thanks to the committee, both past and present, including those who couldn't be here, like Mr. John Head, who's no longer with us, as well as the many donors whose names are on some of the benches here, as well as Mr. George Dunn, who isn't here but helped contribute the land, as well as the citizens and officials of the town of Bethel for providing the support to this colossal effort which has spanned years. Those who appreciate history can find symmetry in this occasion. We stand in the shadow of a Civil War monument dedicated over a century ago to commemorate a bloody war that was fought to preserve a nation governed by the natural freedom granted by our Creator and defended by those who were willing to sacrifice all. The granite slabs to my right and left bear the names of the community's sons and daughters who served not only that war, but all American conflicts since the beginning of the world's greatest republic. The selfless service of these individuals is worthy of remembrance based on their willingness to serve a purpose greater than themselves, to risk all they had or would ever have, to suffer the scars of war both on their body and their soul. We gather to remember them and to recognize the contribution they made on behalf of this small mountain village to the greatest events of the world's history. Said events range from musket fire by a ragtag group of freedom-loving farmers founding a nation against one of the world's furthest-reaching empires, to a bayonet charge on a small rocky hill called Little Round Top that marked a decisive point in a battle that changed the tide of a war, which ended the evil enterprise of slavery, to the modern machine gun fire in places like the Argonne, Anzio, Guadalcanal, Burma, Normandy, Iwo Jima, Pusan, Chosin, Quezon, Mekong, Pleiku, Grenada, Lebanon, Panama, Kuwait, Mogadishu, Bosnia, Kosovo, Helmand, Baghdad, Mosul, Kabul, and countless other locations over the last century. The names you see show our town's contributions and efforts to shape the world. Even if the efforts were not always cloaked in glory, they have undeniably resulted in those of us here today enjoying the peaceful prosperity of our little corner of the world where we congregate this very moment, while others halfway around the world combat invading armies and struggle to endure. Since the War of 1812, the United States has never suffered a sustained occupation by a foreign army because of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines whose names are chiseled on this wall, as well as those on 1,000 other walls across the nation, from Duluth, Minnesota, to Corpus Christi, Texas, from Honolulu to Holton, Maine. Visits of many to this hallowed place will reveal ancestral names, and like me, they will nostalgically reminisce of several generations of family, including some cases our own siblings. Perhaps their minds, however, like my own, will drift to the backside of this monument. There are places for hundreds of additional names to be engraved. To sustain the peace and freedom to which we have become accustomed, these spaces will be filled with the names of Bethel's sons and daughters for generations to come. As a father, having viewed the ills of battle and the sad conditions of war-torn regions, I pray no others will ever have to share in that knowledge. But with the events of Kabul less than a year ago, none can deny the cold realities of the world. Unfortunately, tyrants exist, and the injustices of the world must be vanquished, as the courageous people of the Ukraine can attest to this very moment. And so, more names will inevitably be added to this monument, so long as we are to live in this peaceful mountain hamlet, enjoying the fruits of freedom. In addition to dedicating this monument, we also gather to observe Memorial Day, the appointed day for honoring our war dead. Many will visit cemeteries across the nation on this day. My own family will probably swing by the East Bethel Cemetery, and as I have for years, I will briefly attend the gravesite of Sergeant Isaac W. Estes, wounded July 4th, 1863, at the Battle of Gettysburg. Sergeant Estes was a member of the famed 20th Maine Infantry in that war, and he died on July 16th, just a few days later, succumbing to his wounds. But tragedy was compounded for his family when less than a year within his own passing, he was joined by his wife Nancy and his only child Emma, who was 2 years old at the time of her passing in 1864. Mentioning his name today fulfills kind of a solemn vow and a personal commitment to Sergeant Estes, as well as my own conscience, to keep his family's short story of sacrifice alive a little bit longer in the memories and minds of everyone gathered here today. And I know that as I leave here today, heading out to enjoy time with our family and friends, that Sergeant Estes and so many like him played a small role in giving me that opportunity, as have all the other those our role. So I beseech thee to remember the sacrifice and sometimes the sadness that gave us need for this monument, but also to ask that we take the time to indulge in the joys afforded to us by so many who came before us. I always had this feeling that if Sergeant Estes knew that I would still remember him in years to come, 100 years after he's gone, that he would appreciate it, but he'd also want me to enjoy my life and not wallow in the darkness of his losses, but just enjoy what were the fruits of his sacrifice. So, may we go forward in a spirit of gratitude for the bounty bequeathed to us by the sacrifices of others, and when opportunity presents, honor those who gave the last full measure of devotion, as Lincoln said. And finally, perhaps most importantly, pray for tranquil times for those who will one day stand watch their watch on the wall of freedom, earning their place on these sacred stones. So thank you for coming today. God bless.
Now we'll move on a little bit to the honor roll dedication, and I'm going to give you a history of the honor roll. I wish it could be short, but this has been going on for 11 years, and I'm very passionate about this. I'd also like to call your attention to the gentleman sitting to my left and to Butch Fuller, and I'm sorry I don't know your name, but they're sitting to the right. Those were the uniforms of a time long gone, the Civil War. These are the uniforms of more present times. You can see the difference in those two uniforms and what it must have been like back in the Civil War and the American Revolution to wear those uniforms and carry guns that probably weighed 20 pounds. Many years ago, before 2011, John Head and Craig Ryerson in a local restaurant mapped out a vision on a napkin of what an honor roll in Bethel might look like to honor the town's veterans. In August 2011, at the invitation of Richard Grover, interested men and women, most of them veterans, came to an informational meeting to listen about creating some type of an honor roll to recognize our resident veterans. In one of the initial meetings, it was stated that we were not going to leave here today until we had made a decision on what we would do. We did make a decision. The decision was to commit to do this project, no matter the time it would take to complete. It was not a short process. The Veterans Honor Roll Committee created a mission statement, and in the beginning, and in that mission statement read, to erect and maintain an honor roll monument to be a lasting tribute to the veterans of Albany, Bethel, Grafton, Mason, and Riley Plantation who served their country so honorably. Over the last 11 years, 10 to 13 people made that commitment to see this project through. After several meetings on what we were going to do, we had a location for the project on the green space at the fire station donated by the town of Bethel. We came up with a design for that space, and 2 or 3 years into the project, then town manager Jim Dorr asked us if we would consider a different piece of land, a piece of land the town might be acquiring. He told us where the new location would be, and the committee said yes, we would wait for the town to acquire it, if they acquired it. The piece in question was actually where the late John Head had envisioned an honor roll to be. We waited for 2 years for the town to acquire this land. A lot of back and forth went into the behind the scenes to acquire this piece. It wasn't as simple as just taking the property. Jared Crockett, along with the town, was very instrumental in working out the final details for this piece. We as a committee could not do anything during that period of time, for we did not know for sure if we would get the new site or not. We could not move forward at the fire station, could not spend money, because if the town got the second site, then the design we had would not work here. When we got the okay 2 years later from the town, we had to start at square one again with another innovative design. Our committee went back to the drawing board. Some of us drove around looking at a lot of other towns' honor rolls, from Falmouth to Bangor, from Freiburg to Farmington, from Augusta to Cumberland. After looking at so many different towns' honor rolls and the one in Lewiston that Collette Monuments did, we felt that Colette's were the ones to get in touch with and see what they could do for us. When I say we, I mean the committee. Committees were created for fundraising, advertising, design creation, name research, etc. But in the end, all our members wanted to be involved in all aspects. So we became one big committee with everyone being involved in all aspects. This actually worked out better. September 27th, 2011, we received our first $100 donation. It was a start and it was exciting. After we had a new design from Colette's, we had a new cost of the project. We would need $250,000. Imagine $250,000 to fund this. Sound staggering? It did to us too. We had to be prepared to raise the full amount to pay for everything as you see it here today. What we did not know at that time is how much the local contractors' donations would do for our fundraising goal. We were lucky, incredibly lucky, because when a contractor received a request to, say, deliver materials on the site for loam or crushed rock, they did it without question. They never asked for a donation in return. They helped immensely on our fundraising figures for items that needed to be purchased. Fundraising was our biggest headache. Construction could not begin until we had funding to make this happen. We were directed to Amy Halstead, owner of the Halstead Agency. She put us on the right track and helped us get over the start of the fundraising. Countless time and energy went into this project. What you see here took over 40,000 hours and more by committee members alone. So much research was done. Acquisition of names itself was the largest time consumer and not an easy task. Numerous trips to the Maine archives in Augusta, trips to cemeteries in the 5 towns to verify spelling that we received from the archives, Civil War books, research American Legion rosters, the online site Find a Grave, old newspapers my grandmother kept, DD 214s, picking local historians' brains. Hours and hours and hours was spent looking up sites on the computer. Any and every resource we found, we used to acquire the names and verified them as we could. This wasn't in here, but last week, I got a call, or I received a text on Facebook saying that their great-grandfather was not posted under the World War I panel. My heart sinks when I hear this, and yet she saw her uncle on the World War II. We went back and forth. That night, I did everything I could do. I went to the family research site. I went to Ancestry.com. I went to online archives in Augusta, which is far more user-friendly now than it was years ago. And I found him. I found that he went in from another town far away and then was discharged from World War I. He went back to that town. So I was able to explain to her why he wasn't on the honor roll, but her uncle was. He was never a resident until years later, actually 1923. I take each name seriously and will do all I can to research and find out if they should be on this honor roll. And if they're not, there's usually a reason. But you can see just by the query from a week ago that it takes time. A name doesn't get added until the research has been done, and that one name took 2 hours to look into getting the answer. But I found it, and I got her question answered to her satisfaction. Once there was a wooden honor roll on this spot that held the names of local soldiers from World War II. At some point, that honor roll was removed, and the committee wanted to make sure that all the soldiers on that original honor roll would be on this honor roll here today, along with those who served prior and after World War II. I'm proud to say that they are all on the World War II panels. What you see here today is not a memorial. This is an honor roll. The difference is a memorial pays tribute to those who have died in the service of this country. An honor roll honors all service members who have served, whether they may be living or deceased. The names engraved into this roll are men and women who resided in the towns of Albany, Bethel, Grafton, Mason, and Riley, and were so when they either went in from these towns or were honorably discharged back to these towns upon the end of their service requirement. These veterans from these towns made it possible for others to be able to live here in the freedom we so enjoy. At the end of each black polished base, on the top is a legend indicating 1 star for killed in action, 2 stars for missing in action, a diamond symbol for a veteran who has served in multiple conflicts. The names upon these walls may have served during a time of war, a time of peace, or they may have served in a service support role. There are 1,335 research names on these walls representing the towns I mentioned previously. They served from the American Revolution in 1775, the war where we gained our independence from the Crown, right up through to the global war on terror. In between those dates was the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, the Civil War, on all of the wars fought by Americans on American soil. The Civil War, the nation was torn apart. Brothers fought brothers. The Civil War had the most significant casualties of any war. According to a 2012 study, based on new technology and information, approximately 750,000 soldiers died from both sides. About half from combat, while the rest died as a result of accidents, starvation, and disease. This number is actually 21% higher than an earlier 19th century estimate and highlights the horrible human toll from America's truly deadliest war. After the Civil War, there was the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, the Gulf War, also known as Desert Storm, and also we call all those wars the Global War on Terror. There are 23 single-starred names who were killed in action, 2 double-starred names for missing in action. There are 8 diamond-symboled names for serving in multiple conflicts, meaning some served in World War II and Vietnam, or World War II and Korea. There are 22 women listed on these walls. Numerous families had more than one son who enlisted. When the time came and you were 18, you just knew then you were going into the service as long as you qualified. The 7 Grover brothers, listed on a bench off to my right side, served during World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and are all listed on the honor roll. The Bakers, the Crockett's, the Lovejoys, the Smiths, the Wheelers, the Youngs, and so many more all had generations who served in one conflict or another on these walls. Many returned from their time in service and raised their families in Bethel or other area towns. So many of our friends here today are products of those families. Some did not return home. Lawrence Perry, a graduate of Gould Academy, just 24 years old and a pilot in World War II. His parents on June 6, 1944, received word that he was reported missing somewhere over France. Sometime later, his parents got word that he had been killed in action. In 1943, the paper read, Mr. and Mrs. Homer Smith were notified by the War Department Saturday morning that their son, Lieutenant Charles O. Smith, had been killed in action November 28th. His parents had just a few days prior to that event received a letter from him that had been mailed from India in mid-November. A parent's worst nightmare, sacrifices in the name of freedom. Think about a mom like Gladys Cross. All of us locals knew Gladys as Graham. Worrying because all 4 of her sons, Alton, Stuart, Norton, and Don, were serving during World War II. She was lucky. They all made it back safe and unharmed after their time in the service. They called the men of World War II the greatest generation. They had a hero's welcome with ticker tape parades heralding their return and the end of the war. I tell you this because others were not so welcomed home when they got back. World War I was known as the war to end all wars. Cold, bloody, fighting in the trenches overseas. After Korea, there was Vietnam, the one I remember the most. Every night, Walter Cronkite was on TV reporting the war. The war nobody wanted to call a war. The conflict that caused many a protest on college campuses. A time when music written described aspects of this war or the soldier's life. The war where those whose draft number when it came up and they could not support the cause went to Canada. Where servicemen on their arrival home were told to change into civilian clothes before getting off the plane. Where people spit in the faces of soldiers, calling them killers. The war where so many have been affected by the chemical agent Agent Orange. They were not welcomed home like those of the greatest generation. It was nothing they personally did. They were just honoring their commitment that their government sent them to do. That time was also the last of the draft. So many names on the Vietnam panel are names I know. To all the Vietnam veterans here today, welcome home. We honor and respect you and all you did. In 2001, terrorists took down the Twin Towers in New York City using planes like bombs. This was a time when Americans united and American flags displayed like never before. This began the next 20 years of the global war on terror. And you have our children today. Some of you are more likely to remember. Tyler Smith, who was killed in action in Iraq, or Captain Ben Cross, killed in a training accident in the Ospreys he so loved. Boys, young men who had that need to serve and paid the ultimate sacrifice. Within this area, I see the many textures in the park. The walls made of gray and black polished granite. The base below the ground holds 6 feet of cement to support the walls above. Grass, trees, dirt, the wrought iron fence, flagpoles made of aluminum, the cloth of the flags, and pavement all give this area a strength and durability that will last for years to come, just like the American soldier, strong, solid, and supportive. Should you sit here and ponder, eat a lunch, meet a friend, or look for names of ancestors, we hope you enjoy this area. Some will take pictures, some will take a paper and pencil, take an etching of a name. Stories will be told, some good, some funny, some sad. Ask a veteran about their experience, and rarely they will speak of their time in a conflict. I personally believe it is because there are things they have seen, done, or been through that nobody should be burdened with. Only another soldier knows those burdens. Soldiers are brothers in arms, and they are brothers in arms for life. A veteran comes from all walks of life. Race and nationality not matter to a service member. A veteran can be anyone here today. Is it the person beside you? Are they your family members? One thing they all share is the need and the want to serve and protect the country that has supported them. A soldier has courage, pride, dignity, humor, humility, respect, and a patriotism to their country that is limitless. Veterans share a camaraderie that no others share and will always be brothers to the end. A veteran is someone who wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. When you put your head on your pillow tonight, think about what today really means and thank God that we still live in a free country, free to do what you want with family and friends when you want. We hope school teachers find this as a history opportunity for students. Find a veteran's name, the conflict that they were in, and see where that research would take you. I would like to call your attention to the back of your program. Excuse me. And the insert with all the names of those who donated. They all donated so generously to this honor roll. In the actual construction of the park, when a contractor or a business was asked if they could help, every single one of them said yes without hesitation. Like Brady Chapman, who took down a tree, or Kathy Ford Paquette, who did the landscaping design. I could go over what every contractor did on the back of your program and tell you exactly what they provided. That's how passionate I am about this. Be it time, material, or equipment, but just know that they did this without question or asking anything in return. Fumi, would you please stand up? And Loretta. And Bob and Nancy Chadbin and Alan and Ellie Jodry, would you please stand? The wall behind me, to my right, was donated by Fumiko Head in memory of her husband John Head, who had a vision of this many years ago. I believe he's looking down on us today, Fumi, and smiling. The wall on my left was donated by the taxpayers of the town of Bethel at a June town meeting 3 or 4 years ago. Loretta Powers was the town manager at that meeting. The funds were approved without question, which went to build the second wall. Thus, on the back of that wall, you'll see the taxpayers being recognized for their contribution. The center obelisk to my left was donated by Bob and Nancy Chadbin and their family, the Phil and Mary Chadbin Trust, and by Alan and Eleanor Jodry and their families. The donations received from these 3 central pieces helped us immensely with our fundraising. Your program shows that all benches were donated by families, veterans, or civic organizations. Wander around and look at these benches and see all the people associated with those families who served. I would like to note one of the benches, which is in memory of Captain Ben Cross. After contractors gave so much to this project, they once again opened their hearts at the ask of a single contractor. They opened their hearts and their wallets and purchased this bench in memory of Ben. Family and friends purchased pavers for a family member, a friend, or a service buddy. The pavers are laid along the walkway. There's room for many more pavers. Feel free to ask me if you'd like to get one for a veteran. Many people near and far sent in donations. Strangers slipped donations in the park ranger attached along the walkway to my left. All donations built what you see here today, along with the hard work of a few people. The committee would also like to thank our town managers, past and present, and the selectmen for allowing us to do this project and backing it 100%. A big thank you to Jared Crockett, attorney who handled any legal work pro bono. Thank you to Collette Monuments, who under the direction of Bruce Collette had the vision to design this one-of-a-kind roll that you will not find anywhere else in the state of Maine. I would also like to thank these are not on my program because the program had to be printed, but I'd like to thank the Bethel Inn for the use of the 4 golf carts to shuttle folks back and forth. I'd also like to thank Brooks Morton and Joel Clark for recording this on the Western Hills Access Television, which you'll also be able to view on their internet site. Thank you to everyone. The citizens and businesses in this town are good people. They are your neighbors. They have big hearts, and that is especially so when it was time to move this project along. We thank all of those who are involved, and I hope I have not missed anyone or left you out on the back of the program or in my remarks here today. If I missed you, I am profoundly sorry, but I hope that is not the case. I know I speak for everyone on our committee. This honor roll has been a labor of love by all those who have worked on the committee, by all who contributed to its creation, whether it was in acquiring the land, cutting a tree, putting in water and electricity, doing a landscape design, or erecting and welding the wrought iron fence by the students from Region 9, and all the infrastructure needed to make this a reality, or you made a large or small contribution. People were happy to help. We know the commitment involved and the commitment made by those involved. On the outside of the Main Street entrance is a plaque recognizing Region 9, the classes who participated, and their instructor who had the vision of constructing the fence. I would be remiss if I did not thank our committee members who have been with us for the 11 years on this project. Would you please stand when I recognize you? They never asked for recognition, but I'm going to tell you who they are. Richard Grover, retired Colonel, United States Air Force, our initial chairman for the first year. Craig Ryerson, retired Master Sergeant, U.S. Army, who was our chairman for the last 10 years. David Brown, veteran and vice chair for our last 11 years. Ramona Grover, co-treasurer for 10 years. Arlen Jodry, veteran and co-treasurer for 10 years. Myself, Jane Ryerson, have served as secretary for 11 years and treasurer since 2021 and substitute chair of the dedication committee. Also the following board members: Pat Carter, who couldn't be here today. Bob Chadman, veteran and business owner. Ivory Currier, veteran and business owner. Fran Head, our local state and representative. John Kimball, stay up, please. Stay standing, please. Ivory. John Kimball, veteran and contractor. Albert Lake, veteran. And Michael Stoll, originally dedication committee chairman, who couldn't be here today. Thank you to the dedication committee, which included several of our committee members, along with Scott Cole, commander of Mount Allen Post 81, Harry Orcutt, commander of Jackson Silver Post 68, George Angevine, finance officer of Mount Allen Post 81. When we started this project, it was stated that we should be done in a couple of years, to which Craig stated, we'll be lucky if we're done in 5 years. 11 years later, here we are. I know every one of our committee members are proud of this moment, and they should be. They're as proud in what each one of you as members have done. You may be seated. and pride in the help we received from the people and businesses in the community and those from around the country. We did it as a committee. We did it as a community. We have an honor roll that honors our veterans who have served our country. Many of you waited a long time to see this. I'm sad that some did not get to see this today. I had hoped that Sonny Bean could be here this day, but he passed away last week and was buried at Mount Will this past Friday. He served in Korea with the 82nd Airborne, and he is listed on the Korea panel. All veterans who served then and who serve today deserve every bit of our respect, our gratitude, our admiration, and our thank yous. For it is not everyone that can do what they have done to maintain our freedom. They deserve recognition, something a veteran would never ask for. We hope that is what this honor roll does. Thank you. I would like to ask Scott Cole, Commander of Mount Allen Post 81, and Harry Orcutt, Commander of Jackson Silver Post 68, if they would please lay the memorial dedication wreath. We will now have the firing party salute under the direction of Don Feeney, member of the Mount Allen Post 81.
Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Begin.
And now Rich Farron, chaplain of Mount Allen Post 81, will give the benediction.
O Lord, let us depart in peace and in love and charity with our neighbors. May we be joined together in the common goal of service to our God and our country. Let us drive safely and carefully to our homes, and may God bless and be with us all. May the strength of God sustain us. May the power of God preserve us. May the hands of God protect us. May the ways of God direct us, and may the love of God go with us this day and forever. Amen.
That concludes our ceremonies for today. Thank you very much for coming. And please feel free to wander around and chat with some of these wonderful veterans and gentlemen and check out the honor roll. Thank you. Could we get some of the veterans that are in military fatigues and their uniforms and such to hang for a while, because there's people that want to take pictures, please.
Good job, Mona. Your very last trip for a job. Very last time you were so Come and stop by and take whatever you want. Hi, Ivory. You have to feel lucky, don't you?
And my grandson. All right. John, you're good with us. You're good with us. Great. Well, thanks so much. It's a good deal. The weather, the breeze came we needed too.
Behind there. That's where you gotta be. You gotta be behind the white seats. Oh, Ron, I don't care about pictures. You can, yeah, I said I can get on the
Be right down there by your wall.
Smile like you guys actually. Cheese. All right, look at me.
I say that. I know.
Debbie, you get a program? Oh, you know that mini fireman coming through?
He knows about it. He said he couldn't show it if he could. I said, maybe.
So are you going up the street? I got to make an appointment. I wasn't sure.
Because Debbie locked up for you.
Yeah, she was coming here. Okay, I don't want you back. I don't want you back.
And it's so funny that oh yeah, people called and say I want Debbie. And I actually told them now Debbie.
I was going to say, Debbie, need everything.
I did the big one. It's actually not just connected cities. I'll get the address.
I want to show you how I got to get there. I'll show you.
I think we can just kind of pass it. Huh?
The mic is on. I just need to see when to turn up.
Albert, Lake, Ivory.